What's the difference between OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, and OCPD, Obsessive Compulsive Personality Disorder? And why does it matter? Well, Beth came to see me with magical OCD that centered on obsessions with certain numbers. She also had a strong obsession with doing things in a perfect way. She had to write perfect, dress perfect. Her home had to be immaculate, with things placed properly and cleaned perfectly. Almost everything had to move in a perfect way, and it had to follow her rules of perfection. Now, Beth would get frustrated because she didn't have enough time in her day to get everything done in the way that she wanted it to be done, and it was affecting her work and her relationship. Her partner wanted to spend more leisurely time together, but Beth refused because she didn't feel like she had the time. Now, Beth had OCD, but she also had OCPD, Obsessive Compulsive Personality Disorder. Now, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, OCD, is a disorder that includes both persistent and unwanted thoughts, urges, and images that cause people discomfort, anxiety, incompleteness, not just right feelings, or even disgust. And they feel compelled to do compulsions, including repetitive behaviors or mental health compulsions like rumination. And these obsessions or compulsions are time-consuming, and they affect their quality of life. OCD is described as being ego-dystonic, meaning that the thoughts and themes do not represent who they are or what they value. In other words, they don't want to have the intrusive thoughts and images and urges that they have. Now, Obsessive Compulsive Personality Disorder, OCPD, is a condition where someone has a preoccupation with orderliness, perfectionism, and control at the expense of being flexible and open. OCPD is different from OCD in that it is ego-syntonic. People with OCPD generally are in line with their preoccupations and their areas of rigidity. Think of people that obsessively follow rules and order. Maybe they excessively organize, clean, and they have this perfectionism in very specific areas of their lives. Now, if their behaviors are not negatively affecting their functioning and their happiness in areas of relationships, work-life balance, or school, then it's not a diagnosable condition. However, people with OCPD, they might work obsessively to meet their personal demands of themselves to the exclusion of leisure and relationships. So often others, might point out the problem before they recognize it in themselves. Other examples of people with OCPD can include being over-conscientious and inflexible about matters of morality, ethics, and control. And they might be reluctant to delegate tasks. Some might have a very controlled, miserly spending style. Others might be considered workaholics, but they typically live by their own rules of perfectionism and rigidity. Although they may not always see these traits as a problem, they often feel frustrated that they don't have enough time in the day to get everything done, and OCPD may negatively affect their relationships. 25% of people with OCD also meet the criteria for OCPD. This becomes important in treatment because people that experience both OCD and OCPD together are twice as likely to relapse in treatment. And the main red flag or culprit here is the trait of perfectionism. However, sometimes perfectionism is a good coping style if someone has developed it due to ADHD. So through diagnosis, we really need an accurate picture here in treatment. OCPD is prevalent in 2 to 9% of the population, but the prevalence is higher, up to 24% in anxiety disorders. OCPD, the trait perfectionism, is a red flag, and it's an indicator that ERP may not be as effective, or recovery may not be sustained if perfectionism is not incorporated into treatment. Perfectionism has to be shown to be associated with other disorders as well, like eating disorders, body dysmorphic disorder, chronic fatigue, and even health anxiety. And this is interesting. In a recent study, 40% of people with Parkinson's disease also had OCPD. According to Dr. Anthony Pinto, people with OCPD can present with an anxious presentation style where they can be inwardly critical and be people pleasers, trying their best to not make a mistake. Or they can present with more of a controlling style where they're highly critical of other people, and they can have anger outbursts and be very resistant to change. Now, there's not nearly enough research to establish what the best evidence-based treatment methods for OCPD are. Dr. Anthony Pinto, the leading expert on OCPD, recommends working on increasing flexibility in their areas of rigidity and perfectionism, as well as increasing overall willingness to tolerate distress through experiential learning before beginning treatment or ERP for OCD. OCPD can be incorporated into CBT treatments like ACT and ERP, as well as using cognitive therapy and interpersonal therapy, IPT, and schema therapy. Interpersonal therapy focuses on relieving symptoms by improving interpersonal functioning, and it focuses on current problems and relationships rather than childhood and developmental issues. SSRI antidepressants along with CBT have also shown effectiveness. Now remember Beth's treatment first focused on creating flexibility and a willingness to tolerate leaving things imperfect on purpose. And after a number of weeks of practicing her tolerance of allowing for imperfection, ERP was then added to her treatment for her OCD themes as well. Beth understands that her risk of relapse is high if she gives in to her perfectionistic tendencies, and she must keep her notion of it's good enough and leaving things imperfect on purpose as she moves through her day. If you need more help with OCD, I left you some resources in the description below. And you may find OCD resources at my website, pagepradco.com. Please leave me your comments and your questions about OCD and OCPD below. Until next time, I'll see you in session. Take care. Bye-bye.